Welcome to another episode of the CPG Guys podcast. Our co-hosts, Sri Rajagopalan and Peter V.S. Bond, explore how brands and retailers engage with consumers online, in-store, and everywhere in between. And now, here are Sri and Peter.
Hello and welcome everyone to this episode of the CPG Guys podcast. I'm Sri, of course, one of your aforementioned CPG guys, and wow, what a great Q1 2022 we just had after a whopping 2021. We had in for our programming in Q1 this year, Kroger Precision Marketing, Coca-Cola, Firework Media, Female Founded Marketplace, and so many brands and retailers amongst others. My co-host, of course, is PVSP, also the VP of Partner Strategy and Dev at Fetch Rewards, a mobile loyalty platform. Join me in welcoming the man with the golden voice and the radio, the other CPG guy, Mr. Bond. How y'all doing today, sir?
Hey, Sri, I am doing great. We are into baseball season. Can you believe it already? I think the Dodgers have been mathematically eliminated from the playoffs already. I don't know, Sri.
Disappointed to hear you say that, man. I mean, this was going to be a big baseball year, lots of shakeups.
Oh, you know how
don't have a single new pitcher.
And that, the Dodgers lost everybody, so we're commiserating together.
But after coming off the Giants season, Peter, how bad can it be?
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to getting out to LA and maybe catching a ball game with you. The camaraderie is all I want from that. If I get a Dodger win out of it, hey, all the better. But great to be with you, Sri.
I'm glad we got a playoff game last year, so that made my day, actually. But likewise, Peter, pleasure doing this with you. Before we get to our guest, let me remind our audience that all of our content can be found simply by going to a browser and typing cpgguys.com. If you aren't already following us on LinkedIn, just enter the word CPG Guys in the search box of LinkedIn. And when you get to our page, there's a blue plus button. It also says follow. And all you got to do is click that. That way you'll get to see all of the great content we are producing. You can be part of the confirmation and do what the CPG guys do, which is be square in the middle of the transformation of the retail and CPG industry. And the best thing about it, Peter, it's totally free. We've also launched a new podcast platform on Jan 1 of this year. Many of your followers requested that we explore the world of fast-moving consumer goods in Europe. So our friends Daniel Torres-Doyer and Ephraim have launched the FMCG Guys, aka the Fast-Moving Consumer Goods Guys. Same format, just like us, but focus on the European market. So do check it out at fmcgguys.com and follow the FMCG Guys page on LinkedIn. How do you do that? Just go to cpgguys.com and you can learn a whole lot more about who the FMCG Guys are. Peter and I were able to donate $22,000 to the Susan G. Komen Fund in 2021 due to generous matches of our donation. Such a worthy cause we encourage all of you to participate in. Did you also know that we are in partnership with the Network of Executive Women, just like my jacket says so? And in the middle of every podcast is hidden an Easter egg with a message from New. Download, tune in, listen. Check out newonline.org/CPGguys with a key message on joining the network. Peter and I, of course, love to speak with leaders at emerging brands to learn about the challenges and successes of scaling in an omni-channel world. However, I promised you back in 2021 that we would try to keep pace with the rapidly evolving non-fungible tokens or NFT world. Today, we are especially pleased to have such a guest and co-founder. He is the co-founder of the popular Doodles NFT that when I first encountered, and I will have him tell you himself, was probably 0.1 ETH. And we're going to jump into what an ETH is, what is the 0.1 ETH, where it is today, etc. So join Peter and me in welcoming to the podcast, Evan Keast. Evan, how you doing today?
Hey guys, how's it going? I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on. Up in Vancouver, it's a little rainy today, but we're all inside, so it's a good day.
Evan, before we get to questions and we get into the meat of this conversation, would you first tell our audience, please, where they can learn more about Doodles? Like, what's the easiest way? And then a brief overview as co-founder, what your role is.
Yeah, for sure. So the easiest way to find Doodles is at our website, which is doodles.app. Another way to keep in touch with us, we're most active on Twitter. So it's twitter.com/doodles. We just started our Instagram account as well. So we're going to start posting more content on there. It's instagram.com. Our that tag is We Like the Doodles.
Thank you so much, Evan. Of course, for our audience, we'll include hyperlinks to all of those site addresses and what Evan just said in our episode digital liner notes, so do look for them. Let's jump in. And let me kick this off, Evan, with the first one. I was looking at your history on LinkedIn and who you are, and I found out that you went to University of Calgary, pretty close to maybe a co-host of the CPG guys up in Canada. And then you founded, somewhere in your journey, Breakup Shop. So I'm curious to know what Breakup Shop is, because my imagination runs wild when I think Breakup Shop. But then you spent quite a bit of time in social media marketing, and then you eventually co-founded the NFT Doodles. NFT, of course, non-fungible tokens. Decompose this journey for our audience, University of Calgary to NFT Doodles. How did that happen?
Yeah, for sure. So, like a lot of people in the NFT industry, I'd say, we have kind of a curious and different journey than a lot of people. So, right out of high school, I was kind of thinking, what should I do with my future? And, being interested in math and science and, just numbers and technology and things like that, I gravitated towards engineering. And so, I did a 5-year degree in Calgary. The reason why it was 5 years is because I did an internship. I was working for a company called Kiewit Energy Canada, mostly in construction of industrial type facilities. And I don't know, shortly after I graduated, I was working for about a year, and there was just something about engineering, specifically like civil engineering, that everything was kind of already solved. Like there's not too much to unlock in, concrete or building science. It's very like empirical data. Everything's kind of, been solved, right? So I moved to Vancouver, just took like a long shot. I was like, hey, I want to try to get into something different. And that's what led me to starting up my own e-commerce brand. So I don't know if it's in LinkedIn. I know you saw the Breakup Shop, but before the Breakup Shop, I had kind of a breakout product called Dog Emoji, which was like a keyboard and sticker app. I was inspired by, Kanye West saying that Kim made $1 million a minute with Kimoji. And I was like, okay, if somebody can make $1 million in a minute by selling a sticker app, how can I do the same thing? So I saw all the emojis that were available, and I knew the internet loved dogs. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to make dog emoji. So that was kind of my first attempt at, using critical thinking from engineering and partnering it up with, kind of the inherent like brand sense and internet trends that I had, learned over the last few years. So after that kind of breakout success, I wanted to dabble into creating apps and more e-commerce experiences. So we made a merchandise line for Dog Emoji, that kind of supplemented the app. And that's kind of how I got my first hand into digital products. The Breakup Shop it came at a time when Tinder was super popular, and, there were a lot of people talking about misconnections or not feeling like they were connecting with people anymore. And there was a specific problem called ghosting, which was my generation's form of breaking up with somebody, which is you just don't break up with anybody at all. You just kind of, trickle it out and you don't even respond to them, right? So my brother and I created an e-commerce experience, which was very much a parody of kind of what was going on in our generation and dating, called the Breakup Shop. And essentially you could purchase a breakup, so instead of ghosting your partner, we would send a text or make a call or send a letter on your behalf. It was very much a parody, just kind of against, what was going on with Tinder and dating with our generation. But, a lot of news media picked it up. New York Times picked it up. Jimmy Kimmel picked it up. We were on the Wendy Williams show. Mass media was like, oh my gosh, this is, I can't believe there's a service for breaking up with people. So this was kind of my first taste at kind of these ridiculous business ideas can still be profitable if you're providing entertainment. So really, that's when I started thinking about, how do I entertain, millions of fans all over the world, and how do you convert them to a product that, provides them some sort of value? And even if it's just as a joke, getting this letter or something that, is a little bit odd, it still has value to these people that are being entertained. Right after the breakup shop, I started working for a newer company called Doing Things Media. And this is founded by a guy named Reed Haley, who I don't want to use any foul language on the show, but his Instagram moniker is Shithead Steve. And he makes memes, right? And I think it was around, 2019, 2020, memes on Instagram. If you were selling, retail products or apps or anything that consumers were wanting to purchase, using memes or big Instagram accounts was a great strategy to get your message out to fans. So I partnered up with Doing Things Media. He wanted to get more into the digital space, so I was helping him with his e-commerce, with his app development. We made Memoji together, which was like a emoji keyboard of all the most famous kind of meme faces and things like that. And that's when I got approached by Dapper Labs, CryptoKitties, Axiom Zen. So they recruited me to lead up the CryptoKitties social media strategy. It actually wasn't Dapper Labs when I had joined. They were just forming Dapper Labs. So I was, I think, one of the first 10 official employees of Dapper Labs. So when I came on, I was really focused on, hey, how do I take CryptoKitties? So for anybody who doesn't know, CryptoKitties is one of the earliest examples of an NFT project, non-fungible token project. And back in 2018, it broke the Ethereum network because it was so popular. So they had a smash hit, but the problem was it was only kind of crypto people that were involved in the industry that really knew about it. So my focus was on how do we educate, millions of people, not just the 20,000 that were using OpenSea at the time. OpenSea is a platform for trading non-fungible tokens. And so that was my job, how do we teach millions of people about this new digital collectible? And so for about, 6 months, I was leading up CryptoKitties social media, and then we started dabbling into more products as Dapper Labs continued to grow. That's when we did a $12 million fundraising round, and the team really started to scale. We created a blockchain cryptocurrency wallet called the Dapper Wallet. That's when we started production on NBA Top Shot, which is another one of the most popular non-fungible token experiences right now. And then we also began production on Flow, which is Dapper Labs' blockchain protocol. So, my experience coming out of university in engineering and then making my way to NFTs, it was interesting for sure.
You used a couple key words there that I think are very important. You used the word entertainment, which to Peter and me, from an audience perspective, that's the way advertising is today. If you can entertain in short bursts and very small attention spans, you got them hooked. You got your consumer hooked. Besides that, Peter, just like Kimoji shouldn't, because, one of the co-hosts lives close to Kimoji, shouldn't we have a CPG guys emoji, like a CPG emoji, CPG guys emoji? We need to come up with that name, Peter. And then that one person in my house has been asking me for a kitty, so I'm going with CryptoKitty.
Oh my goodness. All right. So first of all, Evan, welcome to the podcast. Like you, I spent some time at University of Calgary. It was my junior year spring semester. I bunched all my courses into 3 days and then got a season's pass at Lake Louise. So you know where my focus was. When you talk about your breakup, app, all I can think about is Steve Martin and Dan Aykroyd from Saturday Night Live, two wild and crazy guys. They talk about how they would break up with girls. It's a little too not PG for this venue, but in any event. And I would also say, as an expat Canadian, I'm really looking forward to February. It's that 1-2 week period during every 4 years when I become a rabid Canadian. Shri, you have no idea what's in store for you. Curling season is upon us, and I am going to be in force. That's all I'm going to tell you. I'm going to be a very Instagram focused, pro Canada, bash everybody else kind of guy. So just get used to it. In any event,
Roll Canada.
All right, so roll Canada, roll.
The man likes his curling. Let's go.
Oh yeah, who doesn't? What a great game. It's where else can a guy with a gut like mine actually win a gold medal? In any event. All right. So thank you for that little background. So last year we had as a guest, Shri mentioned, Gino the Ghost, who gave us kind of what I'd call an introductory university level course on NFT. I'd love for you to give us kind of the next level. What is going on with Doodles? What do you see as being kind of the direction that NFTs are going in the industry that people should really be paying attention to, and why it's not just for Gen Zers? It's much more embracing people across different generational groups.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, at its core, Doodles is an NFT project, right? Like, we launched on the Ethereum blockchain as a collection of 10,000 non-fungible tokens. So yeah, I mean, people hear NFTs, non-fungible tokens all the time, right? Like, what actually is it? So it's an ERC 721 token, which is different than like Ethereum, right? Which is a currency. So NFTs, or ERC 721 tokens, they're non-fungible, which means they're not like Ethereum. They can't be split up. They're completely unique. So it's essentially just like they're called smart contracts. It's like a set of rules that this token needs to abide by, right? So what are the things that are attached to this token? It's the same as holding currency, but instead of holding currency, you hold a collectible, right? So the things that are attached to it are like the artwork, what edition it is. So we have 10,000, you might have, the token 300 or the token 0. I personally bought back our first token, which was token 0, which I thought was kind of cool. So, you can kind of think of them as like, trading cards versus paper money, right? Like, I could give you 50 cents for a trading card. I could give you 2 quarters for a trading card, but that trading card that you're buying, you can't switch it out with any other because it's a specific trading card. Doodles right now, we don't see ourselves as an NFT company anymore. When we first launched, yes, we sold our 10,000 NFTs, but we see ourselves as a brand in the Web3 space. Web3 is a popular term for kind of just everything to do with what's happening right now. So blockchains, cryptocurrencies, NFTs, anything that's happening on these kind of platforms, the next iteration of the internet, let's say. So we really see ourselves as a Disney-like brand that started in NFTs instead of animation, right? And where did Disney go after they started their animations? They got into theme parks, they got into merchandise, they got into toys. Then they started purchasing other brands and producers and, movie companies and things like that. So, and I think what we're going to see is a lot of Web 2 companies. So people like, your Disneys or your big .coms moving into Web 3. Just as quickly as Web3 is kind of meeting Web2 back in the middle. So that's what we're really focused on at Doodles is like, yeah, we know we can create NFT projects and we can mint NFTs. Minting is when you actually create them on the blockchain. but we want to push the space further than that, you know? Like, what do you see right now? You see brands that are like, okay, here's our 100 NFTs, here's our 1,000 NFTs. And the only thing that people are doing right now is selling them, right? And to me, you know, purchasing something isn't that great of a consumer experience, right? Like, you can go buy something with a credit card, you can go buy a physical collectible. Like, what is the difference between, you know, this new NFT and the old way of doing things? And that's where, you know, true ownership of something comes into play. So the beautiful thing with NFTs is once it's in your wallet, right, you now own that thing. You can now access different things in Web3 with that token. So instead of having to purchase something new, maybe you unlock an experience with that token for free, right? That's one quick example of what it can unlock. And really at the end of the day, we're focused on, you know, what is the future of NFTs and the brands that are building in Web3 and how they actually serve their communities and customers. And I think it's very different from Web2. You know, if you take a look at a Instagram influencer, let's say, that, you know, they have a really good following, they have a lot of fans, and they want to start selling consumer products, right? A lot of times there's not a lot of accountability for the person that's selling you a product. And what NFTs do is it puts a market value to your fandom. You know what I mean? So I think it's just holding people a lot more accountable. You can't, you know, sell something that isn't very good and continue to keep selling those products to people, right? Like your community will kind of catch on. I honestly think NFTs are enabling just a better way of doing business, which is like, I sell you this thing and it will continue to have a market value. And if you don't perform, that asset will decrease in value, right? So yeah, looking forward, I mean, Doodles wants to be one of the best Web3 teams, if not the best Web3 teams in NFTs right now. That's one of our goals. We want to release the best Web3 products. So that's everything from new NFT drops to launching new smart contracts in which you don't need to purchase off of, but modify or use your existing NFT to do new things. And we also want to be good stewards of, you know, what a quality consumer good is. So we want to get into merchandise. We're getting into physical collectibles. You know, we want to look at the entire supply chain and figure out what quality means, because that's what NFTs are all about.
Thank you for that pretty elaborate but pretty detailed explanation of what it is. You know, Nike, I think, has recently announced that they're getting into the virtual real estate world and that they will be withdrawing almost entirely, if I'm correct. I don't remember the exact statement, but from the department store world, and you can only buy Nike from Nike. And part of that is their commitment to NFT token everything that they manufacture so that the fakes can be removed from the ecosystem. I mean, I don't see Nike as a luxury goods manufacturer, but wow, what a move. And the fact that they can just eliminate fraud that way, I think is a big deal. Again, my generation is barely learning what this is. Sounds very scary at the surface level, but I think there's a statement in there you made which was straightforward, which is it enables better business for brands. That's what NFTs will really do at the end of the day while creating wealth for some. Speaking of creating wealth for some, I think at the time I first met you, Evan, way back in Thanksgiving of 2021, I think you were just minting and getting the Doodles project out there, and you were going to go to a party in Miami to launch it. But, you know, it's April 2022. Give us in 120 seconds how scale has come by. Has the Doodles scaled? I hear Gary V back in January of 2022 ended up buying one of the Doodle NFTs for 70 ETH, roughly at the time then $300,000.
Yeah, 70 plus ETH Gary V spent on one of the ape Doodles. At the time, it was over $300,000, and you know, coming off of the Christmas and New Year season, there was a little bit of a Doodles boom. You know, we've had about 2 or 3 sales at 100 ETH, And a lot of the rares have been going for, well into the 6 figures range. So yeah, NFTs are still very desirable. And we're happy to have Gary as a collector.
So, Evan, you mentioned earlier you see yourselves as being kind of following the journey that Disney followed. Where did they go next? So I guess to some degree that was one of your inspirations. Were there any other major inspirations behind you creating Doodles? And what, as the CEO and founder, what it is that you're doing every day to help drive this business?
Yeah, for sure. So, Doodles was founded by 3 very unique and just interesting founders. So there's myself, there's Jordan, who also goes by Poopy Cat. We worked at Dapper Labs and CryptoKitties together, and he's just an amazing Web3 product guy. He wants to continue to innovate. He doesn't want to do anything that's been done before. So he's just a rock star at Web3 products. Then there's Burnt Toast, also known as Scott Martin. He's our amazing illustrator, animator, really the look, the feel, the world that Doodles is. And when Jordan and I met Scott, or Burnt Toast, he had kind of already created the Doodles world, but under his name Burnt Toast, right? Like he kind of had this character with the super cute dot eyes and smiley face and, the floating eye that's kind of, our trademark look. And, he's been an illustrator his entire life since he was like 6, 7 years old. He's been doodling, scribbling around. And, it's funny to think back now at, how we came up with the name Doodles is just through talking, about how he just doodled his entire life. And, before we partnered up with him and, founded Doodles together, he was already a very successful illustrator. He had clients like Microsoft, Google, Snapchat, Facebook, Red Bull. So he was one of the most desired freelance artists to create emotion through icons or stickers or, small, kind of like vector-sized images. So he really knows how to display emotion. And then in his kind of personal work outside of freelancing, he's an amazing artist, and he would do murals. He really crafted this style that he told me was called happy cynicism. So, he did do kind of adult subject matter. I think some inspirations are like, Adventure Time, Futurama. It has elements of like weird, mysterious kind of adult whimsical comedy, So in terms of art, we just have so many inspirations. The 3 of us are millennials that, grew up without the internet, but then internet was like a large part of our life growing up, like we probably all had video game systems when we were like 11 years old, but none of us had Facebook until, we were out of high school, right? Like we're still kind of part of that older generation where, drawing on pen and paper and playing video games without, being on the internet and stuff was a thing. So, we've been inspired by just so many interesting things that have come to light over the last 10 years as the internet has been rapidly evolving, So yeah, I just feel like all 3 of us are like internet kids, like we played RuneScape and we played video games online and like our whole inspiration is just like, how do you continue to connect with people online? Like if you've ever been in a Twitch server and, somebody's streaming a game and they're super excited and you're emoting and you're chatting with people, it's like we already are in the metaverse. You know what I mean? Like when I'm in Discord servers chatting with the community, I'm in the metaverse. You know what I mean? When I'm watching a Twitch stream and I'm, interacting with the community members there, I'm in the metaverse. So I think it's like, we're just inspired by companies or brands or artists or role models that are trying to do what we're doing, which is just make amazing entertainment and a place for people to have fun. Like the metaverse is a place to just engage with like-minded people, and that's what the space is. Why it's so great is because it is a space where people are just having fun online, essentially.
Before we continue with this week's episode, a brief message about Next Up. Next Up is a growing community of over 14,000 professionals representing nearly 900 organizations across North America. On Wednesday, April 20th, you can attend Managing Mental Health in the Workplace, 11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. Central Time, for an exploration of the impact of the pandemic made on the mental health of our workforce and our discussion of strategies to re-engage and build mental resilience in the workplace. Just visit nextupisnow.org/events to register. For more information on how to get involved with Next Up, visit nextupisnow.org/CPGGUYS. And don't forget to tune into the Advancing All Women podcast on Voice America, hosted by Next Up President and CEO Sarah Alter. Listen every Friday at 7 a.m. Pacific Time on the Voice America Empowerment Channel, with rebroadcast weekly on the Voice America Influencers Channel. And download episodes after the air wherever you get your podcasts. This Friday, April 8th, Shri and I will be Sarah's guests on the podcast, so please do tune in. Remember, visit nextupisnow.org/CPGGuys to learn more about becoming a member of Next Up. And now, back to our episode in progress.
Peter, I don't know about you, man, but I'm getting FOMO now, listening to all the terminology. And so a reminder to our audience, of course, we're speaking here to Evan Keast, co-founders of the Doodles NFT project. So how do you mentioned being in the metaverse already. That's pretty obvious now when I listen to you speak. But how do you keep the buzz alive for Doodles? Because this is art. Value is created if the buzz exists. How do you all work on that? And how many Doodles actually exist? You started somewhere, which you mentioned earlier in the show. Have you added since then?
Yeah, for sure. So to start with how many Doodles exist, there's 10,000 Doodles. So when we minted back in October, minting is when you actually pay the transaction to create a non-fungible token. We released a 10,000 collectibles series. So there's 10,000 unique Doodles. Each of them come with their own traits. None of them have the exact same traits, so everyone is completely unique. There's over 60 that were kind of hand-drawn or custom. And then the other ones, we actually built the traits, and they were run through sort of an algorithmic generative process where it combines traits and makes sure that no two traits can be added to the same doodle. So yeah, every single doodle is unique in that 10,000 series. And typically, after an NFT project like the Doodles mints 10,000, what happens is you have right now we have about 5,300 unique collectors of these tokens. What normally happens is the demand outpaces the supply. Right? So there's 10,000 Doodles. We have, well over 120,000 followers just on Twitter alone. The global following is probably over 200,000. So typically NFT companies, once they start to scale their fans, they think, hey, let's sell another NFT, right? That's the natural first thing to think. We have more fans, let's sell more NFTs. Now, the thing about non-fungible tokens is your early adopters, the people that bought your first collection, they are your most avid fans, right? So there's no reason why we would want to create more supply of what we consider to be our most valuable asset, which is our original Doodles collection, the original 10,000. But obviously, when you have 150,000 plus fans, you need a way to service those fans. We need, they want to engage with the brand. They want to purchase something. They want to have more experiences with Doodles. So how do we do that without diluting those original 10,000 collectors, right? They bought something in which, in my opinion, burnt toast is going to be, I think, one of the most respected artists of our generation. So they're holding one of his original 10,000 on this new platform, which is blockchain, which is just interesting, you know, as a collector of art. It's like, you know, this artist created 10,000 unique things on a new medium. So how do we service those fans without diluting those original 10,000 collectors? And that's where you think about things like extending the experience into real life. So entertainment, festivals, animation, TV and film, collectibles. We partnered up with SK, who is a toy maker, and he made Causes collectibles, and we think that physical collectibles are going to be a huge part of how to enjoy Doodles as well. We're also working on a digital toy experience, so unboxing a digital toy. And we think owners of the NFT can actually start to commercialize their individual, unique, non-fungible token. So, for example, if you owned, you know, a skeleton doodle, right? There might be 50,000 fans that want to buy a skeleton doodle toy. There's no reason why Doodles, you know, the founders or the company, you know, we don't really need to sell that toy and make revenue from that toy. We can actually enable our owners to go create these shopping experiences on the front end with non-fungible tokens and introduce them to kind of this whole ecosystem at play. So that's one of the things we're super focused on is how do you monetize, you know, an original artwork that you own, right? Like if you own a Picasso, should you not be able to sell prints of it? And that's what we're investigating.
You know, Shri, I don't think I'll ever look at a piece of charred brioche bread at breakfast the same way ever again after hearing about Evan and his partners. Sorry, guys, that joke, it's a dad joke. I can't help it these days. This is pretty good stuff. So it's my understanding, Evan, that you guys actually host doodle parties or doodle events. One, is that true? And two, are they virtual? Are they in real life? Are they a combination? And what are they doing? How do you see these as mechanisms to grow your brand?
Yeah, for sure. So, you know, yes, Doodles throw parties. We love to throw parties. Right after Doodles launched, we went to New York, NFT NYC, which was at the end of October, started November in 2021. And we saw Web3 culture, like people that own NFTs emerging in the city, you know, entertainment, music, fashion, etc. We saw it converging on NFT brands, specifically Bored Ape Yacht Club, which, you know, is one of the most successful NFT projects in the space. I think they just overtook CryptoPunks in terms of the price per NFT. So, you know, we're talking, I think 65, 70 ETH, you know, at a minimum to get into the project. So, you know, massive brand. And what we saw them doing in New York was really pushing culture forward in terms of, you know, what does an NFT owner do outside of just the internet, right? And a lot of it was just community building. And we thought to ourselves, like, you know what, we want to show what the Doodles can do. So in Miami, we kind of showed the first example of what a Web3 or NFT party can look like. We partnered up with the Heart Project. Sorry, I just had a moment. I'm trying to remember who they. Oh yeah, okay.
No worries. Take your time.
So yeah, the Heart Project. We also partnered up with Electric Feel, you know, who has artists like Gunna, DJ Khaled, Future. So we just really wanted to throw like an amazing party in Miami and be like, you know what, it's Miami Art Basel. We're an NFT company right now. We want to show people in Web2 how to get into the space. We didn't want to like come to Miami Art Basel and, be like, hey, NFTs are the best thing. We just wanted to inject money into the arts. We wanted to throw a party and enable creators to do installations and murals and really just do what the purpose of it was for, which was to create art. So that's what we want to do with all of our events throughout the year. South by Southwest, NFT Land in Vegas. There's another NFT NYC in the summertime. We just want to go to any event that has, technology, art, and business kind of all at the same event. South by Southwest is a great example. Just a place to show what Web3 is all about, is what we want to do.
Sri, I heard the CPG guys are going to be at South by Southwest. I see a crossover opportunity.
I'm telling you, man, we need a CPG guys Doodles. It doesn't sound right, Peter. I don't know. We got to figure this one out.
We got to make it happen.
I want floating eyeballs. That's all I can say. I want our avatars to have floating eyeballs.
Every guest we have on this episode, I learned something new. But man, this space to my generation, I don't want to speak on behalf of my generation. Let me just say me, Shri. Every time I talk to someone in the space, it's like a wealth house, treasure trove, dictionary, encyclopedia, call it what you may. Or in the modern world, we should say the Google of information that I learned so much over here. So keeping that as the backdrop, Evan, when you look at our generation,
the content in this podcast episode is provided for general informational purposes only. By listening to our episode, you understand that no information contained in this episode should be construed as advice from CPG Guys LLC or the individual author, hosts, or guests, nor is it intended to be a substitute for research on any subject matter. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by CPG Guys LLC. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. The views expressed by CPG Guys LLC do not represent the views of their employers or the entity they represent. CPG Guys LLC expressly disclaims any and all liability or responsibility for any direct, indirect, incidental, special, consequential, or other damages arising out of any individual's use of, reference to, or inability to use this podcast or the information we present in this podcast.